So, hi guys.
Hello, everybody.
Here's us trying YouTube again. It should be interesting for everybody to watch.
Is it distracting that my papers are there? Like I could kind of cross my legs a little bit, like that. That looks.
I think
way
that's
worse.
more distracting.
Yeah, Freudian slip there. Let's go to the tape on that one.
No, you're like, because it was just like this, a normal desk, and then all of a sudden it was just facing up with the legs pointing at the camera.
Woo! I want to thank some Patreons off the top, if I could.
Would love that.
I would love to do that. Paige Brewster. Want to thank her for joining our Patreon. By the way, Apple's going to charge you an extra 30%. Now, if you've got an extra 30% to spend,
and you want to give it to Apple,
fine. Because you know what? Actually, Apple was bumped down to the number 3rd most valuable company this week. Yeah,
things.
NVIDIA, Microsoft, and then Apple. So they are struggling. If you do want to help them out,
if you want to keep the lights on over there,
through Apple. But we do have other options as well.
Yeah, tons of other options, and it's the exact same thing. So
you're going to save.
There's Patreon, Google Play. There's, just anywhere you can download apps. You can download the Patreon app. Just don't do it through the iOS app. That is our recommendations.
Yep. So
unless you want to help them, keep food in their mouths over there.
Yeah, those free cafeterias. Like, oh, Google's such a great place to work. Apple's going to be great to work. Yeah, no doubt. I want to thank Lisa as well for signing up and joining our Patreon page. By the way, all these folks, when they sign up, you get a little welcome video.
Matt
from
has been sending some
hinged. There was one that was hinged.
Unhinged. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
He often does, if he sees a beautiful girl out in the wild, he'll then pull out his phone and start doing a Patreon video. So a lot of them are him trying to impress a lady that is not on the screen that you can see.
Which I fake a call from you or whoever, my agent or the producer, before. And I'm like...
You're like, employee of the month again? Oh, okay.
You're like, hello? Yeah, good. Yeah. Oh, I'm just at a baseball game right now. Oh, sure. Yeah, I could. Okay, if it's important.
Did they pay the $15,000?
Yeah.
Well, if the money's already come in, then I guess I'll do it.
I'm sorry. Make a what? Oh, a wish. Yeah, no problem. I'll get to that.
It's not the last wish, though, right?
I'm like, all right. Hey, little Timmy, hope you pull through. We're all rooting for you. Thanks for subscribing.
If you become a Patreon and Matt calls you little Timmy, he's picking up.
Want to thank Sweet Bubba AJ.
Heyo.
Joining the Patreon group. Same with Tiffany. And we're going to wrap today's list up with Kathleen B.
Kathleen B. Thanks for...
we all know what the B stands for.
Best ever.
If you have to ask, you can't afford it.
Okay. So I do want to issue a trigger warning here because this case is not... we're not going to be getting into anything political or anything along those lines, but it does focus heavily on the attacks on September 11th of 2001.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And if that's a trigger for you, then I get it because it is also a trigger for me. It's one of those, I think we've talked about September 11th a few times on the podcast, and I usually end up crying. I've tried to steer away from anything that's going to make me cry, but I mean...
It is tough, man, and that the footage. It also, here's another weird thing. It happened in 2001, okay, but 24 years ago, I believe. Is that my math?
Almost, yep.
There seems like every couple of years I see new footage. Like,
yeah, I've taken a lot of footage in for this episode, and it is. I have never seen.
You see the NYU kids?
No.
Drinking?
No.
That one's crazy.
Was it when the first plane hit?
Second.
Okay, so
or it might have been the collapse.
Yeah. So the video that I just saw for the first time ever, and I don't know what was being taped. It was just a firefighter in the streets of New York, and it was the first plane.
So that was a French documentarian, and they were following this ladder, which is like a fire company, a firehouse, and they were just checking gas leaks.
Wow.
As this documentary crew was following them, and then you can hear the plane so low, and then the camera just kind of pans up, and you see the first plane hit.
It's and everybody's like, all you hear is holy. Yeah, it's a horrific case people are still experiencing. Actually, one of the guys that I'm going to talk about in this case, he just passed away in 2022 from a World Trade Center related cancer.
Oh God, you know what? And that's the problem with. Here's the problem with heroes. They're so concerned with saving lives.
Yeah.
And I get it. I don't even know if we knew that it was super toxic back then. I think that it was just like, listen, there are people in there. We're going.
Yeah, I don't think it was a lot of thinking beforehand.
Yeah.
Just basically getting in there.
And then you see like, and I know, what did you say? Not to get political. I'm going to this one time. But you do see folks like Jon Stewart in whatever the U.S., my apologies, form of the House of Commons is, talking about funding for these people. And I'm like, just show the footage of 9/11.
Really?
Where's the funding? Who's saying no to this
You know
guy?
what? I don't have any words.
Dying?
Look at this.
Yes.
There you go.
Here's a guy who can't breathe. Oh, and then here he is 24 years ago running into the rubble.
Wild.
Crazy.
Absolutely wild. So, do you remember where you were when you found out about the attacks?
100%. I was living with my parents. Oh, how
What?
things change.
Crazy.
More things change. And I slept on the couch that night in the living room, and my mom woke me up and was like, oh my God, something horrible is happening. And I was like, nah, it's probably nothing. And I went to turn around to go to bed, and then the second one hit.
Oh my God.
I worked at a Laser Quest in Richmond Hill, which is like a laser tag
In there.
facility.
Hey-o.
I was a marshal, had way too much power. Do not give me power. I get drunk. But their head office was in the States or maybe in New York. And so they shut down for the day. So I didn't have work to do. We were all freaked out. So we went to my Nan and Papa's house.
So you lived in Richmond Hill too. So did I when we didn't know each other then. But if you drove right down Yonge Street,
Mm-hmm.
you could see the fog across the sky. Because, I mean, they're 10 hours away from us, but it was so much. I remember that I was going to work at KFC.
Nice.
A little braggy there.
Were you a cook or a server?
No,
like
I
at
was a
the
server.
front? Nice.
It's not really a server. It's a
Counter
Yeah,
Jackie?
Yeah, I did some drive-through.
Oh, my bad.
But I called my mom to ask her something, and she picked up the phone at work crying.
Mm.
And she was like, isn't it so awful? And I was like, what on earth are you talking about?
What, the new double crunch chicken wrap?
It's not great, but I mean, no. And then she told me, and I just, I can't imagine. And I when I think about it, I feel like I'm going, like I could
There's
be
that
in those
anxiety,
people's shoes. And it's just, I think anything that I'm imagining, it was probably 500 times worse.
100%. And it really put in perspective, like, I never really understood firefighters. I kind of saw, like, figured what I saw was what they did, and that's fight fires from the outside.
Right.
I never once thought, of course they run into the building.
Yeah, you got to get the people out.
Right? And then that was when I realized, oh yeah, these guys.
Didn't you want to be a firefighter before 9/11?
More so afterwards.
Mm.
There was a big thing with my circle of friends. One actually became a firefighter.
Well, someone has false.
Yeah, the rest we just were like, oh yeah, you go ahead.
You're like, it's either a firefighter or a podcaster. Both are saving lives.
Risky heroism, 6 and 1.
So, the case that I'm going to be telling you about today, like I said, surrounds the events of that Tuesday, September 11th of 2001, which I'm sure, I don't think it's a stretch for me to think that everyone in the world knows what happened that day, right?
Yes, it's funny. I was just talking to my nephew yesterday.
The Australian nephew?
Here, Canadian, Theo, at soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, do you know who Osama bin Laden is? And he was like, the name sounds familiar. And I'm like, do you know what 9/11 is? He's like, he made 9/11? And I was like, yeah.
Well, I'm really trying to convince my husband to go to the Freedom Tower. And I was asking.
That'd be emotional.
Yes, for sure. I'll be a mess. And that's, I think, the most traumatizing thing if I brought my kids would be me explaining it to my kids what it was.
Yeah.
Because, like, if they just watched a, documentary about it, they'd be like, oh, okay. But then they've got their blubbering mom just like, they'd be like, Jesus. But I am going to give a quick rundown just because, there's some younger listeners and maybe, all the details. So it's just a quick blurb about what took place that day. 2 planes were flown into the World Trade Centers in New York City, killing just under 3,000 people, including people in the towers themselves, the ground, the plane, and the first responders who acted fearless in response to this tragic event. Real true life heroes, as we just said.
100%.
Another plane also crashed into the Pentagon that same day, killing another 125 who were in the Pentagon and all 64 passengers on the plane.
That's propaganda. It was a missile. America. It was an inside job.
United Airlines Flight 93 was also destined to hit either the U.S. Capitol building or the White House, but heroic passengers... heroic passengers would interfere, and the result was the plane crashing into a field in Pennsylvania. Sadly, all of the passengers and crew members would pass away, but those heroes on board saved who even knows how many lives.
Yeah, right. Like that was the one I think headed towards the White House, or
they said it was headed toward Washington.
Yeah, but like that's balls. Firefighters, listen, you are heroes, but running into a burning building is nothing new. Right? You'd never know the outcome.
You signed on for that is more what we'll say. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But these guys just
I'm just trying to go somewhere.
Yeah. Like, and then just were like, and to bond with strangers so quickly to form a plan.
I think that if they probably knew what was transpiring around the country, maybe, it would be more believable that they would do that. But to just, in that one, to just know this is so much danger.
Yeah.
We need to do something. It was a completely selfless act and really, resulted in saving so many lives. So, like I said, it's not going to be an episode based on the planes that were flown into the towers. This is going to be a story that comes out of that day. But let me just give you a quick rundown of what happened in New York City, Tuesday, September 11th. Everyone that was there said it was a beautiful day. There was not a cloud in the sky. No one could have predicted what was going to happen. At 8:46, United Airlines Flight number 11 flew into the North Tower, directly crashing into floors 77 to 85, causing a huge explosion with smoke and red flames barreling out immediately, along with paper, debris, and horrifically people, that all of a sudden everybody on the ground and in the South Tower just saw. It's sickening. It just makes
that is heartbreaking. The flying man,
and that when you see people realizing that it was people,
then you start to think that's their best option.
Well, yeah,
that's how literal a hellhole that they are in up there.
Yeah,
like geez.
So obviously at this point, when the first plane hit, no one knew what to make of this. Was it just an honest accident, or was it something more? That fear would be confirmed when at 9:03, United Airlines Flight 175 would crash directly into the South Tower, hitting floors 92 to 99. Both planes were Boeing 767s that had departed from Boston Logan Airport headed to LA. The Twin Tower buildings, which first opened their doors in 1973, at the time were designed so that they could withstand the impact of the strongest plane that they had in 1973.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which would have been the Boeing 707, which was discontinued in 1979 for the mere reason that they were advancing, moving on to bigger and better as things go. Something that I found wild was that the towers were actually painstakingly designed to test and endure a certain amount of sway. They were built with the exact combination of flexibility and stability that needed to be, they needed to be rigid enough to withstand even the windiest of days. And these 110-story buildings were so high up that, workers on the top floor could even sometimes look down and see clouds.
Oh, that's crazy.
Right?
And feeling it.
Well, you can't. And I will tell you why. Because I am an engineer.
Oh, awesome.
So the workers on the top floor, they would look down, they would see the clouds. But because of their height, they also needed to be flexible enough so that they could absorb some wind energy. After endless testing, the towers were designed so that it was okay for them to sway up to 3 feet in either direction.
Oh, my God.
And in order to minimize the feel of swaying to the occupants, they installed 10,000 viscoelastic dampers between support columns and floor trusses.
Okay.
These viscoelastic dampers are energy dissipation devices that reduce vibrations and shock by converting kinetic energy into heat. I will be taking no further questions on the topic.
So if you just kind of clap your hands, you feel the warmness. That's kinetic energy turning into heat.
Yeah, and that's what stops me from
I
swaying from
think.
side to side.
I think.
So the towers were close to looking identical, but actually the North Tower was 6 feet taller and also had a 360-foot tall transmission tower.
Mm.
The World Trade Center towers were first to use a unique elevator system, which I find this, to me, I've only seen the Twin Towers on TV. This makes it sound to me that the whole building was just elevators. So there were 2 express elevators. One would go from the ground level to the 44th floor, and similarly, one would go from the ground level to the 78th floor. They would end off on what was referred to as a sky lobby at their destination. And from there, you would have to take your local elevators to, wherever your office is.
Yeah.
So that if you work on the 90th floor, you're
not
not
going 90 floors.
stopping every single one. So then there was also one more express elevator, but that would go right from ground level to the 110th floor. And in between all of these sky lobbies, there are 4 local elevators. So, for example, if you just get off on the 44th floor, then you get on your designated one because they'll all go to
different
floors, but they have 4 stops each.
Oh, okay.
So this elevator system is now being used in most modern skyscrapers. Mm-hmm. They were the first in the world, though.
Hey.
Before 9/11, there had been another attack on the towers. February 26th of 1993 at 12:17 p.m., a van bomb exploded in the parking garage of the North Tower. This was also related back to the tower.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 6 people were killed, as well as an unborn child, and thousands were injured. But that's it for the quick history of the towers. Today, I'm just going to talk to you about somebody named Tanya Head.
Yeah.
What?
I think, I don't know. I thought that there might have been a lady at the head of this. There might be a lady at the head of this.
Because her name's Tanya Head?
Oh, my God.
You know what? She sounds like she's at the head of something. All right. I think I know what this story's about. I'm not telling you.
You can't even give me that spoiler.
First of all, you're an you're good asking.
Okay.
So Tanya would say that she was on the 78th floor of the South Building when the second plane hit. Sadly, Tanya would say that the love of her life, Dave, worked in the North Tower, and he was on the 99th floor, right where the first plane struck. Tanya's story first became known because another survivor, whose name was Jerry Bogaz, had been struggling with his own story. He had escaped the 82nd floor of the North Tower and was naturally so traumatized by the attacks that he felt, he needed somewhere to get it out, to vent.
Yeah.
He felt as though talking about the events to friends and family members over and over and over again was also traumatizing for them. Like,
oh, God. Yeah, no doubt.
and it's such a unique trauma. Like, it's not, there's tons of people that have been in car accidents or lost a family member. There's tons of people that you can just relate to on these everyday tragedies. But this is so unique. No one knows this kind of PTSD, essentially.
And I think that the scale is so big that you take all of 9/11 and put it on Jerry. Almost.
Exactly.
Right? So when Jerry's like, yeah, like you're just thinking, you're seeing the footage, you're just thinking all of the horrific parts of it.
As much as I've thought about 9/11, I don't even think I'm able to, understand a fraction of what these people went through. Like, it's just
like, no, like
no matter how many people, and I've listened to survivor stories so many times, and it's just like, I catch my breath because it's so horrific just listening to them, and to think that a real person experienced this is like beyond anything that my mind can even grasp.
Yeah.
So, he was like, okay, I can't talk to my family members because, first of all, they almost lost him. And that horrifying realization alone is like, it would be like somebody, re-saying to you, hey, remember that time I almost died? Hey, remember that time I almost died? Hey, remember? And you're like, oh my God, like,
and he to them was probably dead for a little while, right?
Oh,
all
boy.
the cell telecommunications were down. It was on top of the building. New York was a dead zone as far as like telecommunications go. So and I'm sorry, you think the best, but you're assuming the worst. Like as people, it's just our nature, I think.
I watched from start to finish on YouTube. You can find the Regis and Kelly from that morning.
Oh yeah.
And they couldn't even get through to their like reporters, anybody. Like, they couldn't there was no communication. Eventually, Regis and Kelly just shut down, and it went to a news broadcasting system.
That's why there was not a lot of on the ground then, because it's all like the CNN, like I've seen that as it happens, the Today Show kind of as it happened and stuff. And yeah, there was a lot of live field reporting.
Kelly and Regis started at 9, right? So the first plane hit at 8:46. So it was like they're like, what is happening before they went to sit down. And Kelly was she was visibly shaken. She was like, I don't know what to think. I don't know. And he's trying to kind of like not be jovial, but just be like kind of normal.
Yeah.
And it's just not like neither of them are functioning properly. And of course they are.
And
like,
yeah, nobody's going to fault them. Yeah.
Because you know what? The best case scenario is that this was an accident and still hundreds and hundreds of people have been killed.
Yeah.
So
I never
that's
thought of
best
it like
case
that.
scenario. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
So everybody, obviously, everyone in the, I can't speak for everyone in the world, but most people were affected by that Tuesday morning in different ways. But no one close to Jerry could fully understand where he was coming from. As much as they sympathize with him, like I said, it's a very unique type of trauma. So he began holding in-person survivor dinners at his home.
Oh, yeah.
And remember, this is 2001, too. So it's like the infancy of the internet. Like, it's so...
No social media.
Yeah, you're not hopping on FaceTime and being
you're probably doing like Evites over MSN Messenger.
There's a Yahoo chat in
here.
Yahoo! That was ICQ, right? So, like I said, he was having these dinners at his home. And
because we wouldn't understand it. Like you would think, okay, you suffered a trauma from 9/11. No. You were in a building, then a plane hit. There's your trauma 1. Now you got to exit the building. Trauma 2. You're going down stairwells. Trauma 3. Now people are dying all around you, right? You finally exit. And then what do you do?
And he was on the 82nd floor.
Jesus.
Like that is, I can't. But yeah, so he's having these dinners and people were coming in and they could tell their story in full to somebody who actually understands what you went through. Like it would be a type of bond that I don't think you or I could understand.
Yeah. It's trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding. That's for sure. Yeah. So, everybody would go and they'd be able to get it out and they would feel better the next day. So Tanya would get in touch with Jerry for the first time online and would later attend one of these dinners that he held. So she would tell her story, and I'm going to have to stop here for a second because I need to give a trigger warning. The details in her story are so graphic and so horrifying that if you don't think this is something you can listen to, I don't blame you. Maybe skip 30, maybe a minute. So she explained that her office was on the 96th floor of the South Tower. On that morning, shortly before 8:30, her fiancé Dave, who was in the North Tower, called her and asked if she wanted to grab a quick coffee. She apologized and said that she wouldn't be able to make it because she was just heading into a meeting at that exact moment. That would be the last time she spoke with him, because only moments later would be when the first plane hit. And when it did, naturally, everyone in the South Tower heard the explosion, and Tanya ran to the window and began counting down from the top floor in hopes that Dave's floor was not the exact impact site.
Jeez.
But like I said, Dave would have been on the 99th floor, and the plane hit floors 92 to 99. She said that after she made her way to the 78th sky lobby, hoping to catch the express elevator to the ground and get out of the building, once she was on the 78th floor, she said that she heard a woman screaming, and then the second plane hit, directly impacting floors 77 to 85.
Oh, she was on the second floor of that.
She was there. So Tanya was, right where the plane struck. She said that she was thrown hard into a marble wall and lost consciousness. She awoke to a man in a red bandana using something to extinguish the fire. Do you know the man in the red bandana?
I just from that name, and I've seen articles. I don't know if I've read them, but I know of the lure.
He's a very, he's a well-known figure that, was involved in this. So Tanya says that he was using a material of some sort to get the fire out that was on her back and her arm. So the man in the red bandana, like I said, he's very well known. He is a hero who saved many lives before losing his own when the South Tower collapsed. but I will get a lot. I just want everyone to know that I am going to pay him the respects that he absolutely deserves. So we'll get more into him a little bit later on.
Everyday hero stuff blows my mind. It's so foreign to me.
24 years old.
It's like I'd freeze. I'd have sleep paralysis.
You don't know. You don't.
I would like you see those people like jumping out of the building. I don't even think I would have that in me.
I don't know. You just don't know. You don't know. You're not in the same mind frame that you would be then. But Tanya said that her arm was so badly injured that it was barely hanging on. It was just literally hanging off by a tendon. And she tucked her arm into her coat so that she wouldn't lose it as she was trying to escape the building.
Oh, that's just good planning.
She explained that the carnage around her was something straight out of a horror movie. There was people trapped everywhere. People were stacked upon other people and trapped under debris. I mean, I'm sure anything that we can picture, as people who weren't there is probably 10 times worse than what it was actually. As she was making her way out, having to crawl through a sea of debris and victims, a man who Tanya said was clearly not going to make it handed her his inscribed wedding ring and asked her to try and get this back to his wife. She agreed and she took the ring. Tanya said that the man in the red bandana would guide her down the stairwells and got her out to safety, where he handed her off to a nearby firefighter who carried her to an ambulance while the man in the red bandana ran back inside and tried to rescue more people. And it was at that moment at 9:59 in the morning that the South Tower would collapse. Tanya would be one of only 18 people who would escape any of the floors that were at or above the impact zone.
I'm sorry. That was it? 18 people?
At or above.
Wow.
So, yes, no one at or above the impact zone in the North Tower would survive.
Wow.
Right.
Because I guess it would also, because you're stranded essentially if it hits those. Well, I guess some of the elevators could have been separate, I guess, with the separate banks.
I think all of the elevators were done.
Yeah.
So naturally, those listening to Tanya were utterly horrified and heartbroken at the mere thought of what this woman had been through. Every single survivor had endured the absolute worst thing that no one should ever have to face. But Tanya's story and the loss of her fiancé made it even that much worse.
Well, and then also you've got two broken heart stories, right? You've got the man with the ring, but then you've got a little redemption with the.
You've got the man with the ring.
Red band, yeah.
You've got the man with the red bandana. The building collapsed the second he ran in there. Like, you've got her fiance. You've got she nearly lost her arm. Like, there's so many elements to her story that are just like any one of those things.
One of those is a traumatic life.
For sure.
Will impact your life for sure. Yeah.
So, she would wake up. She said that she would wake in the hospital 6 days after she had arrived. And that's when she learned of her fiance's fate. And she would, remain in the hospital. Naturally, her arm was basically taken off.
Oh, yeah.
So she would remain in the hospital until Thanksgiving, which was November 22nd of that year. So we're talking a month and 11 days she's in the hospital for. Which actually, you know what? Considering all, that wouldn't have been that.
No. They probably serve a Thanksgiving in the hospital. Like I think they do in jail and stuff. You probably get a little turkey, a little stuffing.
God, I don't know. I've only eaten hospital food when I was in there because I had C-sections.
No one likes a bragger.
But the hospital food is just so putrid. I can't even imagine that anything.
It is an odd thing where you're in a place to make you better and you just get like unhealthy, bland kind of.
The most disgusting.
Right?
Where am I in jail?
That's right. I'm sorry. Is having a C-section a crime now? Is this The Handmaid's Tale?
So, luckily they were able to reattach her arm, although there would be severe lifelong scars. But aside from that, it would be fully functional. She would tell people that the night after she met Jerry at the survivors' dinner, the two would later go for coffee, and that was where they discussed starting an actual World Trade Center survivor support network. And
I know this bitch.
That's what they did. They would co-found the nonprofit together, and there would be a Yahoo online chat room that survivors would have 24/7 access to if and when they needed to talk. So by the time that she had met Jerry and they had begun this journey together. It was 2004. Tanya was only 31 years old, but she was very passionate about the support group and just, getting survivors the things that they needed to help them heal.
What do you like physical thing? Like somebody needs like a heating pad.
I'll tell you. You know
Okay.
what? I got a list of the great things that Tanya did.
Perfect.
So
I sensed a little
hostility?
some.
No, never.
Just a tinge.
Never.
May wind that back a little bit. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Okay, continue. I'm sorry. I'm getting in my own head, maybe.
We just start a fight on our first YouTube video.
You know what?
It's not what you said, it's how you said it.
Here's some hostility.
I'm just here reading alone after.
This is for hostile. Go fuck yourself.
So this blew my mind.
Yeah.
Survivors were not allowed down into ground zero, but victims' family members were. So like it wasn't.
Is that from a psychological thing? Like,
No,
is it to
no.
re-trigger them?
Nope,
or-
they wanted to go down because this
Oh.
is okay. So they were only permitted to stand at the observation deck, which is like where all the tourists are hanging out. Tanya would go above and beyond and ended up getting them permission to go down and at their own pace in privacy take it all in for the first time.
But this is. Oh, sorry. This is okay. I'm sorry.
2004,
Yes,
so it's
I'm
still
sorry. I'm still
we're not
thinking
talking.
She's in the hospital and it's a rubble. But no, this is like
no. This is 3 years later. Yep.
It's cleaned up. It's the pit.
Yeah, it's already, I hate to say a tourist attraction,
Yes.
but it is already where people come.
Yeah.
And,
Pre-Freedom Tower.
Pre-Freedom
but-
Tower, the
I
Freedom Tower
gotcha.
took years. And I think $3.8 billion. It's
Wow.
a lot. Not to me, but I mean, to some.
Do you know the real estate company that held the?
The Durst. they have 5%. It's not really.
Oh, well, this is nothing.
You know what?
It's hardly even trillionaires.
So they would go in at their own pace and privacy and take the first, they would have their first experience since that day in being there.
Oh my God.
A lot of people would say that it was so healing because I think your
Really?
mind creates a monster. And when you go down there and it's just,
Right.
it's just this hole now. Like it's just this, it's not so built up in your imagination anymore of what it could look like. And there was a lot of people there was a lot of survivors that wanted to go down and say their goodbyes to their coworkers and their friends. And, this is, it all happened so fast that like you didn't really have any experience aside from trying to survive.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, it was something that a lot of people said they weren't forced to go in. It was people that felt that they needed to go and do it.
Mhm.
And a lot of the ones that were able to do it found it very healing.
Good for them.
And so Tanya was the one to kind of arrange all that, which is
Awesome.
talk about throwing your weight around. Like I wouldn't even know where to begin to do something like that.
Yeah, right.
I can barely get in here sometimes. Like, did he change the lock?
Let me in.
So obviously a lot of survivors dealt with immense survivor's guilt. And Tanya was no different. She didn't understand why some of her colleagues didn't make it out when she did. She was like, in one interview I saw, she was like, they have children and I don't have children. Like, why did I get out and they didn't? But she said she was focusing her energy on the Survivors Network, allowing her to, kind of put her
Use her grief
energy
like
somewhere
tangibly.
else. Yeah,
get
like
a
just
good-
be able to, instead of sitting there and focusing on all the negative,
Mhm.
put it somewhere else and
Make
do some good with it.
Okay.
So she would arrange meeting minutes, secure state funding for the survivors who needed it. She would sponsor events from her home and would even use her own money to pay for trauma experts who needed them. She said she had even managed to get that inscribed wedding ring back to the widow of the man who she encountered as she was making her way out of the building.
Oh, wow.
Through the network, she would meet many dear friends. Linda Gormley would consider her and Tanya to be best friends. At the time, they together would offer tours of the site. Tanya was also Spanish speaking, so that was useful when, Spanish tourists would come and wanted to hear what they had to say. Another survivor, which is actually, this survivor is the one that I was talking about who got the 9/11 related cancer. He died in 2022. His name was Brendan Chellis. He was struggling with his own 9/11 trauma after he had come so close to losing his life that day. He had actually, his story is wild. He had actually been annoyed, as I'm sure many New Yorkers are, when the subway that he took every single day was late. he got on the and what did he say? So I read his entire account, and he said that he was one of the last people to get on the subway, and it was like, you know, what I visualize is like people's faces pressed against the
Yeah.
windows, and he's like, I was probably what people would consider that jerk that squeezed on, and he goes, but I didn't care then. Do jerks ever care?
Yeah.
And so he had been 5 minutes late, but it would end up saving his life because he was just about to enter the World Trade Center the World Trade Center 1, which is the North Tower, from the underground mall. So it sounds a lot like our path system here in Toronto.
Yeah, like a Union Station.
Yeah, like underground is easier to move around in the winter.
Yeah, there's stores, shops.
People with warmer
malls.
states don't understand our
Yeah, but
desire to be not frozen all the time. So he was in the underground mall when he said that the lights flickered. And he was like, well, that was weird because they probably got generators at the Wahoo for anything, right? And he was just about to enter World Trade Center 1 when the lobby exploded.
Which all the pressure.
Had the subway been on time, he would have either been in the elevator shaft or he would have been in his office on the 30th floor when the building was hit. Brennan would go online and he would find the Survivors Network. And after meeting Tanya and hearing her story, he was actually like, you know what? I don't belong here. Because I was just in the mall when this happened.
Still have trauma.
And, you know,
I could see that though.
Being like yours is so much worse than mine.
Yes.
Like you were actually in the explosion.
Yes, it is. You still listen. You still have trauma to bring to the table.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I think so many people, even people that weren't in New York that day, are traumatized. But obviously, it's not comparable. But I mean, it's just such a horrific thing that happened.
I don't see anything ever like that. There was no television for at least a week. It might have been 2 or 3 weeks. There were no sports. It was all, if you didn't have a news network attached to your company, you ran CNN.
Yeah.
And it was like that for so long, like for like weeks and months.
I want to take, this isn't anywhere in my script, but I just watched on Netflix right now. They have it's a 3-part documentary
The Bin Laden?
On the capture of Bin Laden.
How's that?
Did
they get him?
No.
Oh,
you can't find him anywhere. No, it is so good. And it's one of those things where you're like, oh, I know this story already. No, you don't. And you feel like, I texted my dad because he's a lot like me. And I said, you have to watch this. And I said, it feels like you're hearing information that you're not supposed to hear.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's very, very, and you're hearing it from all of them. The man that killed Bin Laden is in the documentary.
Robert O'Neill?
I have goosebumps just thinking about it because it's did make me really miss Obama.
And I just love how they are just like, okay, you killed Bin Laden. Like, what was that like? Was that your plan? He's like, that was just the guy in the room. It could either been me or depending on which way that turn went.
The craziest was when he was talking about being in the van going back after he had done it. And he had Bin Laden beside him. And he's listening to Barack Obama give a speech about we got him and no Americans were hurt. And that gives me goosebumps all over. But he's like, and I'm listening and I'm looking. And I'm just like, what? Like, it's surreal. But sorry, we're not going to go political, but it's great docuseries. Absolutely fantastic.
And that girl, it was Jessica Chastain in Zero Dark 30. It's not, obviously it's a real CIA agent, but is she in it? Probably not. They wouldn't really put her in there, but her story, again, Jessica Chastain played her a little bit, but she was like relentless with that career.
She was 24 at the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah, she's in it.
And nobody kind of respected her, kind of young CIA agent, and was just,
The craziest was when they're talking about, so Obama's like, I need a speech. And so so they're writing the speech and they're like, he edits to the last possible second. And then they're like, what you see the president walk down this long hall and he gets to his podium and then it shows who he's actually talking to. And there's like 6 people.
Really? Behind the camera? That's pretty funny.
Because it was also in the middle of the night too, right?
Yeah, I was at a bar. I was at a bar when that happened.
Oh my God. It's definitely worth a watch. Like I would say for me with the amount of I can never get enough answers when it comes to this because it's just so crazy.
I know.
But it was very informative. And it's not stuff that you think, it's not stuff that you actually already know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so poor Brendan, he's like, you know what, I'm not where I belong because you guys have so much more going on. And Tanya reassured him. She's like, no, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Like, your grief and trauma are so relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one's grief is worse than...
Like, you are valid, you are seen, and I hear you.
That's what I say to you every day when you get in here.
That's what you do. And you say, take off your shoes.
So Linda Gormley, she said of Tanya that she was living proof. So Linda believed that Tanya was living proof that God was in those towers that day.
Oh.
Because Tanya was saved and she was still able to laugh and be positive, even though she'd seen so much darkness and she was bringing so much light to other people who had seen that darkness. She spoke often of her fiancé, Dave. They planned to marry on October 12th of that year. Tanya said that about a month before the attacks, Dave had surprised her when she walked into a path of rose petals that led to him in the living room with a grass skirt and a coconut bra. He was dancing the hula. And he presented her with tickets to Hawaii that would leave the very next day.
All right. That's how you say you're going on a trip.
That's how you cover up your dressing in a hula skirt and coconut bra.
Hey, look, come on in. Yes. No, I was thinking for our wedding, I know how you like the sand and the surf. And
so he had also sent off her measurements and gotten her like a beautiful white dress made.
Oh.
And he'd invited her parents, and they were all going to go to Hawaii and have a wedding ceremony.
Nice.
Although this ceremony would be symbolic, not legally binding. They had their, legally binding one in New York in October. But this is just a way that he wanted to kind of,
how you do it.
Something intimate. So the next day after they were married, they would call their friends and tell them that they got Maui'd. Maui'd?
Yes. Stop repeating.
Maui.
I was already ashamed of myself for finding it funny the first time. You're re-traumatizing me. I hate
Don't worry, they're valid. You're seen, and I hear you.
I hate when I laugh at stupid. I hate it. It's so funny.
Maui. So, I wrote ... Get it?
Get it. See what it did.
So, when asked how they met, Tanya would say that it was outside of the World Trade Centers when she first met him, as he stole the cab that she had been hailing.
Oh, yeah. That's a funny meet cute.
Chivalrous.
Paging Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks.
So he apologized while jumping into the cab, and he gave her his card. He's like, sorry, bye.
Call me.
But she was pretty pissed off, Yeah. There's 0 cabs in New York City, so they're hard to come by.
Mm-hmm.
JK, LOL.
Oh, yeah, right.
So she took his card and she scrumpled it up and threw it away. She's like, this noise. But about a month later, the two would end up meeting in a meeting.
Wait.
They were in the same meeting.
Oh, my God.
I know. It was destined.
Well, like, hey,
so
what's that?
They got to talking, and as they say, the rest is history. They eventually would move in together and share a dog who was a golden retriever. His name was Elvis.
Love it all.
I think Elvis should be a black-haired dog, though.
I would agree.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Every year on the anniversary of 9/11, Tanya would bring a toy cab to Ground Zero, just like as a little inside joke between her and Dave.
That's cute.
After hearing about how the man in the red bandana helped rescue Tanya, his parents, Allison and Jefferson Crothers, Crothers. It's Crowters. Crothers?
I think it's Crothers.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it's Crothers.
I apologize. They had already heard so many stories from people who their son had saved and how he acted as a hero during his last moments.
Which would just as
how
nobody
proud
wants
would you be?
to,
And then you'd be like, oh my God, he was so incredible and now he's gone. It's like it almost would make it hurt a little bit more because you created this man
amazing,
so incredible, and now he's gone from the world.
Look at that legacy he left. The thing that you created,
yeah,
he's now a real
literal
life
hero. Yeah,
mythical creature.
Exactly.
Like it's the man in the red bandana.
The man in the red bandana.
Like just
their son was 24-year-old Wells Crowther. He was an equities trader in the South Tower, but he was also a volunteer firefighter.
he was a finance bro?
Yeah, finance bros.
Whoa, all right.
Tanya was hesitant, but she agreed to meet the parents in a very private meeting, as she said that she'd started meeting with some of the victims' families and they would actually get angry with her because she had survived and their loved ones had not.
All right. Like, did you see that happening?
I don't even know how you'd have that conversation.
Could
she was like, "Hi, I'm so sorry. My condolences." And they're like,
you survived.
How
What do you
dare you for surviving? No. But, when she did meet Allison and Jefferson, they were lovely and they really appreciated her telling them about their son. And Tanya told them that she had actually kept the burnt clothing that she had worn on that day, and she was going to have a piece of it displayed in a plaque and sent to them because it was one of the last things that their son had touched. It is weird. It is weird.
A little.
But you know what? If they were like, "That's so sweet, thank you so much," then
yeah,
that's one thing. I don't know. But on top of the Survivors Network, Tanya also said that she opened a kids' charity in Dave's name and was a part of a widows group, which she technically was because a judge had agreed to marry her and Dave posthumously.
What?
Yeah.
Wait. Do you not need a marriage?
Well, if they were getting married the very next month, they might have already had the license.
Oh, okay. And then you just have to implement it.
Yeah, and I guess because of the she did also say that she had lost her Tiffany's engagement ring in the attacks and that Tiffany's had agreed to replace it.
All right. Can I just ask one question?
Please.
Do you ever, like, she was wearing her ring that day?
Yeah.
Like, I guess, is that our assumption? And then it just came off?
I guess.
Okay. I just don't think rings do that.
They just don't. It depends on the shape of your finger, really.
It's true. What was hers? Round? Carrot? Baby carrot? Big carrot?
If you have a hardy knuckle, that thing's staying on there.
Yeah, that's true.
But sometimes if you're like,
maybe she's too dainty.
What if you have like triangle shaped fingers? They're popping off.
You gotta have 5 Toblerones in your pocket.
So, of course, naturally, Tanya began to gain notoriety because of her tragic story. There were articles being written about her, and she would meet and be praised by Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Ooh.
A fall from grace, that was.
Woof. So one day after giving a tour, Tanya was approached by a group of reporters, wanting to ask her some questions. She was with a friend and fellow survivor whose name was Janice Salento. These reporters, for some reason, sent Tanya into like a full-blown panic attack. She was crying and shaking, eventually resulting in Janice just having to tell them to leave her alone because, first of all, she was in no state to give an interview. And she was almost like, these reporters were almost causing her to have a medical reaction to.
She was like triggered with
very much
9/11, and then Janice, the survivor of 9/11, had to step in and say, "Hey, listen, what you're bringing up about 9/11 is too traumatic to my good friend here.
My good friend Tanya. That's
so
right.
I, fellow survivor, who went through this burning building of hell, want to just let you reporters know you are putting my friend over there in emotional distress."
Listen, Matt, I've written the script in a certain way. I'm gonna need you to pull back on your insinuations.
I'll pull it back.
I'm going to need you to believe what I'm saying right now.
I'm sorry.
So, in fact,
Yeah.
a lot of her support group friends were noticing that mentally Tanya was declining. They assumed it was, because the grief and trauma were starting to set in more.
Doing
the
more
dust
outreach
is
work.
settling, so to speak, and she was now just living with the PTSD and the grief and whatnot. So Tanya would attend a type of therapy that is specifically for treating trauma, and it's a form of exposure therapy. And you know what that is, right? If you're afraid of clowns, a clown comes in.
Oh,
if you're afraid
God.
of fish, a fish walks into the bar. Now,
A bartender says, "Hey, we don't serve your kind here."
so I guess we have to explain this both on the podcast and on our YouTube YouTube thing that we're doing now.
Oh, yes. The video and the audio portion of the pod.
This is one of our very, very first videos that we've ever done this for. Not our first time podcasting, so no real excuse there. But the phone that we were using to record did die, so we're going to try to put these two things together. But we had the thought, because we're also really good at planning, we were going to open a package that we received from a listener before we started our episode. We did not do that.
Again, issues with the technical setup. Not a human error. There's a technological
an
error.
Impossibility that it was a human error. So we've decided that halfway through this janky recording, we're going to open up our before we just get right back into all the horror.
All right.
Okay, so Matt has got our gift.
Step 1, open the box.
It's your dick in a box.
Open after you look inside the box. Don't be a dick and ruin the surprise.
Wow.
From Elise. Is that how you say Elise? I-L-S-E? Elise? Isle? Is it Isle? It is not. Look at all the tissue paper we got. And it's different colors. We can pack so many things in this. Oh, this is great. It's also good. You can make like crumpling sounds.
You can have the blue. I'll have the pink.
Oh my God. I love it. Oh, is this like a handmade? Did you see this?
No.
I believe, Lynn, this might be something for you. This is
Is it a lock of Taylor Hanson's hair?
I'm going to hold up the first thing, which I believe is an F-bomb. And Lynn, I believe these are for you. It's got to be homemade, but it looks too good. Dare I say? That's not insulting. That's probably a compliment. Yeah, right? Isn't that incredible?
Oh my God.
I cannot.
Oh my God.
And they're all there. Your boys.
It's little
teenage knitted Ninja Turtles.
And Raph. My favorite. Oh my God. This is incredible. Sweet? Okay, you better say her name right.
I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth and complain or criticize, because that is not what I'm here to do. I am very thankful. I will say, I don't know the packaging is needed when you're not. You can just mail these guys. Look.
Well, she didn't want us to see it. She said it right on the front of the card.
Oh, I'm an idiot. Elise.
These are absolutely...
Elise, my apologies. Lynn, you're the best.
Oh my God. I cannot wait to put these in the studio. They have to have priority seating.
Lynn and Matt too, I guess. Thanks for bringing levity to some horrifying stories. I know I promised Lynn there wasn't a bomb in this box. But I couldn't resist adding the F to
Look
it.
at their little ties.
And you guys talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles so much. I had to make you some. Please keep being awesome. Love, Elise. P.S. It's pronounced Ilsa, like Elsa, but way better. Ilsa, my apologies. Thank you for putting the pronunciation in your card.
Yeah. You know what?
Ilsa.
We're going to have to let Matt go from the podcast for saying it wrong those 2 times, because obviously,
wow,
this is a gift unlike, oh my God, this is so incredible. Thank you so much, Elsa.
I love the F-bomb.
Yeah, that is adorable. And these are absolutely incredible. I can't wait to find the best possible place to put them.
Even the card is like fantastic.
So cute. Oh my God, look at them.
Oh, Ilsa, love you. Thank you.
Incredible human being.
That is awesome.
Oh, look at how cute they are. Look at their little ties on the back too. I'm absolutely in love with them. I can't. They have to stay here because my kids will take them.
Yeah.
And Raph looks as hot as always.
I want to fix this F-bomb to like here.
That's a fantastic idea.
Right?
Yep.
Something like that. Wow. All right. Let me clean some of this up. Thank you, Elsa.
So that was wonderful. Thank you so much. You have no idea how much that actually tickles me.
Isn't that amazing? Like when you saw that they were Ninja Turtles?
It was
like, because I was like, well, what is, oh my, it is not. And sure enough.
So now that we've interrupted the middle of the recording.
Oh, yes.
let's try to jump back in as seamlessly as possible. I don't know if that's a thing. But yeah, I think where we left off last, Tanya was attending a type of therapy. It was exposure therapy kind of.
Oh, yes, where if you're afraid of...
Clowns.
Yes.
A clown
I'm just gonna
gets
turn
there.
that light on.
You're afraid of a phone dying. Your phone dies. Oh, yeah, we need our... Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh.
And we are back.
We're back.
And bright.
And bright. Enjoy our pores.
Hope you like flaws.
So, yeah, basically, flooding is... It's trying to... and I don't think this really applies, but what do I know? I'm not a professional. Like reduce the, effect that event had on you, which is like, I don't know how many times you would relive 9/11 to just be like, oh, this is fine now.
Right. I'm thinking maybe you
like if
can't
a clown
even...
shows up a bunch of times, you're like, you know what? I'm desensitized now.
I'm wondering if it's like, I can't even go into the city. I can't even go into New York. Okay, well, here, let's get some baby steps here. And look, now you're down by 34th Street where you couldn't go before. So we're one, let's take, and then we're done for the day. And then we come back tomorrow.
But basically, the way Tanya was doing it is she was told that she would have to close her eyes and relive those moments. Oof. And she would talk through those moments and say, I see this and I see this and there's fire here and whatnot. And when she wasn't with her therapist, she was doing these exercises with her friend Linda, who agreed originally to do it with her, initially thinking like if she could help her through her recollections of that morning, then, she could be of a great help. But Linda was also a survivor. So, it was bringing up a whole bunch of things for her that she didn't quite recognize. She didn't realize that these things were going to be drudged up. Linda was not actually in the towers. She was on the ground level when the attacks happened. So, it is different, but it's not, who's to say, right?
Right. And some of the footage from ground level
is just as horrifying.
Right. It's like you either look up or you look to the left and see the horrificness.
And to think of like the people that you were seeing come out of these holes in the buildings.
And then just the actual reality of a human body falling and hitting concrete in front of you.
Too, like I could imagine it might even be more traumatizing because you've seen from your perspective and now you're getting from the other perspective, and it's just like being able to combine those two things might be like two pieces of a puzzle that you don't need to put together.
Yeah, right.
But it began to bring up these things for Linda, and her nightmares were coming back, and it eventually got to the point where she had to tell Tanya like it was no longer healthy for her to go through these vivid memories any longer. Yeah. And sorry, I found my mouse.
A real mouse?
So when she did that, she was told by Tanya that she was being selfish. And Tanya said to her, my trauma was so much worse than what you went through. Like, you're not being a good friend by not letting me.
Tanya said this?
Tanya said this to Linda.
To Linda?
Another thing was that every year on September 10th, Tanya would have a barbecue gathering. And this year, which was 2007, she spent the entire party just crying and hyperventilating, and like she was inconsolable, which is like all these people. This is a support network. So everybody's just trying to help her.
Yes. Yep.
So Brendan, the one who was 5 minutes late because of his subway.
The subway complaint. Yeah.
He'd started to feel like something was a little bit off with Tanya. Like, yeah, she's doing all these incredible things. She really was doing incredible things. But, he was like, one night before he went to bed, he was like, you know what? Just to put my mind at rest, I'm going to Google her fiance. Like, is he even real? We've never seen a picture of him.
Wow.
Like, nothing. So his exact quote was, what if she's one of these people that never tell the truth and she's made everything up?
I mean, that's pretty low, especially with being like boots on the ground support groups,
right,
and helping people get what they need.
Right. So, like I said, they've never seen a picture of Dave. Like, you would think in all her tellings of Dave, she'd be like, by the way, this is him. Like, this is us in Maui.
Right.
When we got Maui. So, Tanya never attended. Like, you would think that, like, you know, when they're going to these events, like, you know, the memorials and all that kind of stuff, maybe she shows up with his parents. Like, this is his fiance after all, you know?
Yeah, or in his name, they would honor him and pay tribute to him any chance that
Right. Oh,
you
yeah.
get.
So they'd never met his parents. They'd never seen a picture. So he figured, you know, I'm going to hop on the old Goog and just look up Dave.
Mhm.
So, you know, he wanted to get on there quickly, put all of his cynical feelings behind him, and then just carry on appreciating this woman who was doing so very much for this group of people. So after Googling Dave's name, he saw that Dave was very real. He did work on the 99th floor, and he sadly did lose his life that day.
Oh, okay.
It appeared that Dave was very popular. There's still tons of glowing tributes written about him online. His colleagues and family members, friends, even his old teachers talked about how wonderful he was.
Oh, nice.
But no matter how hard he tried, Brendan was unable to find anything about Tanya when it came to Dave.
So the grass skirt inviting to Maui may not have.
Yeah, you would think that somebody would be like, you know,
where does that lie come from? Like, how do you even come up with like that? Why? Answer me now, please.
You know what? At the end, I have questions that I do want to go through with you because some of them I can't wrap my head around.
Yeah.
So we'll just tack that on. Grass skirt.
Yeah.
Noted. Yeah, but you know, in all of these stories and all of these tributes, at some point somebody's surely gonna say, like, and you know, the love of your life, Tanya, or you know, you were so close to your wedding.
Yeah.
Or you just got back from your ceremony last month. Like something.
Or even if like nobody liked her, even there'd be he's with that.
You
bitch.
loved her.
He's still with that bitch.
Yeah, you loved her, and
yeah, remember
we
love
loved
you.
Yeah. So you know, surely his fiance is going to make some mention in all of these things, but nothing about his engagement or his trip to Hawaii. Not even anything about their dog Elvis.
Well,
You're mentioning the golden retriever Elvis.
I mean, if he had black hair, maybe you give him a mention.
Yeah.
Which I was pro Elvis as a name for golden retrievers.
Your name
up
in
until
golden retriever
today.
is Bon Jovi.
Yeah, you're right. You got to go with the famous.
You got to go
blondes.
Jovi.
Yeah.
So Brendan tried. He would later say that he didn't sleep a wink that night because he was so determined to find something. He scoured the internet for, you know,
the alternative is so
dark,
horrific.
But there was nothing that even implied that the two of them knew each other, let alone were in this beautiful relationship. But he just kept coming up empty-handed. Like nothing was leading to a path where these two were in a committed long-term relationship. And he wasn't exactly the only one who had suspicions. Elia Zendeno was a survivor who was also in the South Tower, like Tanya, but she was on the 73rd floor when the building was hit. She and Tanya would spend a lot of time together, and she would often go to Tanya's apartment. And every time she would go, she would ask where Elvis the dog was. You know, every time she asked, Tanya would say that her housekeeper, Lupe, had the dog out on one of his walks, which seemed reasonable for the first few times. But after a while, Elia was beginning to believe that Tanya didn't even own a dog. At first, she was just asking if she loved dogs. And she was like, I really want to meet this dog. But after a while, and sometimes being in Tanya's apartment for hours upon hours, she's like, where is Lupe with this dog? So she was starting to get suspicious, but who would lie about having a dog and why?
Was she looking to see if there was like dog bowls? Like, do we know, did she
didn't
go
say
that far?
She didn't say, but she did eventually ask Tanya. She goes, do you even have a dog?
Oh, nice.
And Tanya just went, yep. And be like, I feel like that's not a close-ended answer. Like, you need to elaborate a little bit more. Where are you walking around New York City for hours and hours and hours?
Okay, fine. I'll tell you. My dog also died on 9/11.
Oh my God. Jesus. So Jerry, he was the one who co-founded the Survivors Network with Tanya. Of course, you know, he had seen these terrible scars on her arm. And
Yes.
So she has horrific scarring on her arm. As they were led to believe it was caused by the fire, but he couldn't help but think that the scarring didn't look like burns at all. He's like, it looked like a skin graft, but not like of a burn.
Okay.
So he said that as soon as he had the thought, he felt terrible. He was like, she's been through so much. Like, why would I think something like that? And, he was also starting to kind of doubt the legitimacy of her story.
No.
And it leads to a whole other fucking emotion, right? You're just like, ugh,
Totally.
I'm a piece of shit. Why would I think something like that? So both Brendan and Jerry didn't dare ask any questions because first, how could you ever?
Right.
And second, Tanya had the support of everyone. Like they almost coddled her to the point where like everybody was like protective.
She's like the queen of survivors.
She's the queen of trauma.
Right.
So everybody's like, don't say anything that could even, trigger anything. So, Tanya's trauma was causing her so much anxiety that the members of the group were beginning to worry that she might hurt herself. She was calling them every day, all day. Like she was just getting one of them on the horn at all times, just sobbing. And
being like, what?
Just being, sometimes it was
like
that
her husband or just the loss.
It was everything. One of the big ones, though, was that she would sob uncontrollably about the family members of the victims, and how they were mad at her because she survived. And she would say, I tried to save them. I tried.
Wow.
It was one day, it was Linda so Tanya called her and she was sobbing. She said that there was family members that asked to meet with her and she had met with them in the lobby of the hotel and it turned into a screaming match. And so Linda hopped in her car instantly and went right to the hotel that Tanya was at.
Yeah.
And she's like, when she pulled up, Tanya was outside of the building, like leaning on the side of the hotel, just sobbing hysterically. And she's sobbing, I tried to save them. I tried so hard and da-da-da. And Linda was like, oh my God, like, let's get you somewhere. You need to like have a glass of water, sit down, just calm down. And she went inside and she was like, talking to the concierge. She's like, can we just please, people need to stop bothering her. Like, can we just get her in here and just get her calmed down? The concierge was like, we have literally no clue what you're talking about. And like, they never saw any type of altercation or there was no big eruption in the lobby.
Oh, Jesus.
So Linda's like, okay. And then that was that. She ended up taking Tanya to the memorial site where she, touched Dave's name and
brought a little taxi.
Well, this wasn't the anniversary. Don't get crazy. She doesn't just have toy taxi money lying around. But eventually she started to calm down. She's like, okay, you can go now. And Linda was like, okay.
What?
So a reporter for the New York Times had been calling Tanya and a bunch of other people, actually. He was trying to speak with her regarding a piece that they were doing, and Tanya had arranged 3 separate meetings and canceled every single time.
It's a good move.
Tanya, I'm actually shocked we can get you here ever.
I only canceled once today.
So Tanya arranged, she was like, I'm sorry, I can't make it because of like my emotional duress that I'm under right now.
I'm using that.
So eventually, after the 3 meetings that she set up and then didn't show up to, she just declined doing the interview at all.
Oh, okay, that's good.
And this was causing her to spiral even more. She would call her friend Janice saying that he wouldn't leave her alone and that he was going to write lies about her, which is kind of a weird thing to say.
Like a Times reporter.
Yeah.
Or about a Times reporter.
It's not the National Enquirer.
Yeah, right.
So Tanya would beg Elia, the one that confronted her about the dog, to contact the Times and tell them to leave her alone. Elia did as she was asked, fearing for her friend's mental health, and after the call, Tanya would yell at her that she had probably just made the matter even worse.
Come off of it. I feel like I'm being punked here.
I'd be like, you need to fucking pick a lane, lady.
Yeah, that's right.
So these reporters from the Times seemed to be calling everyone surrounding Tanya, including her fiancé Dave's parents.
Oh, I like this.
Dave's parents would say that they had never heard the name Tania Head before, and that their son being engaged to her before his death was a, quote, impossibility.
Wow.
His mother would even go through all of his individual emails just to be sure. Like maybe you don't know somebody as well as you do, or as well as you think you do, just to be sure. And there was no mention of a Tanya, an engagement, a trip to
The poor
Hawaii.
mom going through that stuff. How dare anybody put somebody through that?
But, with that, I think, and I mean, I'm sure the days that they were in Hawaii could be accounted for in a different way on Dave's end.
Yeah.
So, of course, that last bit about Dave's parents and all that had not made its way back to the Survivors Network just yet. And all they could see was that their friend was extremely upset. And for their part, they really couldn't understand what the big deal was. Like, just give him the interview and he'll leave you alone.
Yeah. He's got your journalism questions. Like, where were you on September?
And they said, even if worst case scenario, if he does lie, it'll be easy to disprove. Like, just get Dave's parents or one of his friends or something like that. Somebody can verify your story. This should be easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Yeah, it's not like you're being an evil asshole and lying about all of this.
Not Tanya. So Linda was asking her friend, she was like, just give me anything. Like, give me something. She's like, just so that I can go to them and say, like, listen, why don't you ask this guy then? So she was like, give me the name of the man whose wedding ring
Oh, there you go.
you had to return. Like, surely you tracked down his wife. I'm sure you have some sort of his information, Or what about the firefighter who had carried her out to the ambulance? Like,
that man in the red bandana gave her, right?
yes, but he had sadly passed, so he wasn't. But in her story,
that's convenient.
Well, yeah, I guess it was. That's the thing, is in her story, every single person on that day, aside from that firefighter, had passed. So the only living person would be that firefighter who took her to the ambulance. She couldn't give his name. But of course, you've got to know this wife's name, this widow's name. Like, you tracked her down.
It's like the best story.
Yeah. It's
like a beautiful story out of hell.
Out of tragedy, yes. But Tanya refused. She wouldn't give any names. She wouldn't do an interview. She decided that she was going to retain a lawyer who would speak on her behalf. Janice would go with Tanya to the lawyer's office, and they would wait outside the room for 2 hours while Tanya was inside discussing the matter.
Well, that's expensive.
Well, and poor Janice is just sitting out there for 2 hours in an office that I imagine is just
boring.
So gray.
Yeah.
Everything's gray. I'm certain of it.
Bunch of books on a shelf.
Ugh, the worst.
They probably don't even have that Highlights magazine where you spot the differences.
They don't even have Lego on their shelves.
Oh.
So as Tanya was leaving, so the door gets cracked and you're like, thank God.
Yeah.
But the door gets cracked, and as she's walking out and the therapist is kind of like seeing her out of the doorway, Janice heard the therapist say to Tanya, it's okay that you only knew Dave for a couple months, and it's okay that you were only in the tower for that day. What?
Huh? Wait, did you say lawyer or therapist?
I'm sorry, it was her lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah, so the lawyer said to her, like, it's okay. It's okay that you only knew them for that day. It's okay that you were only in the building for that day. It's okay that you only knew Dave for a couple months.
But she worked in that building.
That's the story she had told. So why was the lawyer saying this, right?
Yes.
So Janice is like, wait a second. She only knew Dave. They lived together. They had a dog together. They were engaged.
Yeah.
Like, she could have only known him for a couple months.
And that dog's got to be like the fittest dog. He just walks.
So he's just pure muscle.
He probably doesn't get excited about walks anymore. He's like, oh.
He's like the Hulk Hogan of Golden Retriever. That they should have named him Hogan.
He's also a racist
Not Elvis.
dog.
Ew, gross. No, Golden Retrievers, they would never be.
No.
But yeah, so Janice called Linda and she was hysterical. She was like, she's lying to us. I don't know how deep the lie goes, but there's lies happening.
Wow.
But why?
Yes.
So at first, Linda was like, don't even call me saying this about her. Like, that is horrific. And, she was so good at manipulating these people that Jerry, the guy that she co-founded the Survivor Network with, she wanted him out. She didn't want him to be part of it anymore. And she said to him, people are starting to think you're not doing enough for the survivors. You're not doing as much as you could be doing. And I don't think you're going to get reelected to the board. And he was like, what are you saying? Like, do you not want me? Because the election was like the next day or something. He's like, what are you saying? You don't want me to show up? And she's like, yeah, it's probably a waste of your time. And he's like, I'm showing up. And he showed up and he got voted out. And he could not. This is a
Survivor.
non-profit that he had done
Blindsided.
and he started it in his house.
Oh my God.
And
yes.
the other people that were, in the
An
network.
alliance.
So the documentary that I was watching, these people are saying, well, Jerry wasn't one, and Jerry is the one who was like, her scars don't look right. Something seems off.
Mhm.
So Jerry was not one to be bullshitted.
Yeah.
And one of the other survivors said, Tanya could not manipulate Jerry, but Tanya could manipulate us. So she manipulated us to get him out.
Wow. That'd be Jer.
In case you haven't figured out yet, Tanya is a big, stupid liar.
What?
I think you might have known that. I feel like when you called her this earlier.
Did I? I'm sorry. I gotta have more of a poker face. You're right.
You're like, this?
Yeah.
You threw your pen.
I will no longer be taking notes on this.
Every time I mention her name, your eyes roll. I'm like, pull it back.
Who, that lion?
Going for shock value here.
That's right.
So, yeah, all of her friends are starting to kind of figure out, like, what the hell's going on?
Mm.
And as it turns out, Merrill Lynch, which was the company that she worked for, had no record of anybody by that name who worked for them.
Oh.
Tanya had also claimed that she had gotten her undergrad at Harvard and her business degree from Stanford.
Lie.
Both Ivy League schools had no records of anyone by that name being enrolled there.
Sorry, I said lie.
Like,
I meant lie more.
Like,
Don't
don't
pick those
shoot
schools.
that big.
Yeah.
Say DeVry.
Yeah. Fake college? North Bay.
Like, this isn't a fucking.
I just say North
This
Bay
isn't a
college.
job interview.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
DeVry.
they had no records.
I went to DeVry.
Yeah. Merrill Lynch had no records. I did see some places that said that Merrill Lynch didn't even actually have an office in the Trade Center.
Oh, geez.
I don't know the validity of that, though. What her friends didn't know was how deep the lie actually went.
All right, let's get into it. That's what I like.
Not only was Tanya not in the South Tower that day, she was not even in New York or America at all.
What?
Her name wasn't Tanya.
That, I had a question.
Her name was Alicia Estz.
Alicia Silverstone?
No.
Estevez.
Yes. So she had come from a very wealthy family in Barcelona, Spain. She was the youngest of 6 children and only daughter. So she was like the apple of their eye.
There was a lot of pee on that toilet seat
So
growing up.
much
I'm not saying that excuses her behavior. I'm just saying.
Aren't you? Aren't you? So friends of hers growing up would say that she was spoiled rotten and was known to have top of the line Arabian horses.
Arabian horses?
Arabian horses. That's what I said. You didn't correct me.
That's correct.
That she would ride on her family's farm in Mallorca.
Morocco?
No, Mollorca.
Oh.
Mallorca.
Yeah, that's in Spain.
Right
yeah,
there.
Yeah, I would just say, oh yeah, in Spain.
So she was, a part of tennis clubs. People said that she was very cheerful and jovial, and her family was really well known. People who knew her said that she would always be talking about different rich boyfriends who adored her, but she could never provide a picture. They never visited.
No!
Yeah, they never came around. They were busy that day.
You don't know him, okay? He's a doctor at a different school.
Oh, yeah. At a different school. The school.
He lives 2 towns over, okay? I met him at camp.
But
How'd you meet your rich boyfriend? He took a cab from me. You take a cab? You're a millionaire.
he stole a horse from me.
He stole an Arabian.
Yeah, gave me his card. And then when he brought my horse back, we went to Hawaii.
And I said, you and the horse you came in on. And that is how.
And that is
phrase-
how we engaged.
That's how I met your mother.
So
We engaged.
it got to the point with these boyfriends, they're always rich, they're always handsome, they always adore her,
Mhm.
that her friends would just shrug it off and carry on. She's like, yeah.
Mhm.
New boyfriend, super rich, loves you so much. Got it. Check. So she was also known to be obsessed with Americans.
Okay.
She
hear
learned
that.
how to speak English. She did go away to school when she was younger in America, and she dreamed of one day moving there. And that's all she ever talked about was how great Americans were, and she just idolized them. And then she did move there in 2002,
Oh.
which is a whole year after the attacks.
Mm-hmm.
September 11th is a holiday in Barcelona. So no one can say with like...
That is so f***ed up.
Well, it was before this. It wasn't.
Okay.
It's not because of this.
Oh my God.
But
I'm like, why would they have it? And not like you're really vacation day hungry, Spain. Right? It's like everything is a day.
oh my God. So we're talking 2001 in this exact moment. So
Yeah.
on September 11th, because it's a holiday, schools were out, so nobody can say with 100% certainty that I guess she wasn't in New York. But at the time, she was enrolled in Assad Business and Law School in Spain, and she returned the very next working day after the holiday. So it's more than unlikely that she hadn't just flown to New York for the day, been involved in the 9/11 attacks, and then went back to school the next day.
And recovered in the hospital in
My
Spain?
next line was, she certainly was not in a hospital until the end of November. That's, we can say with all certainty.
Yeah, and just I know you're not a doctor, but your arm getting ripped off in like a fire, is that a big fix or is that a quick fix?
It's not quick.
Okay.
Yeah, but we
it's
will
not
talk
the
about
big forever.
So, my next line again, as for the horrible scarring on her arm.
I'll just shut up. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm the worst.
That's your whole job. So she told different people different things. To some, she said that it was the result of a horseback riding accident. And to some, she said that she had been on a road trip with a friend when they had lost control of the car and it had rolled down an embankment. And first responders were able to find her arm that had been completely cut off during the accident. And it was successfully replaced at the hospital. Either way, something messed up happened to her arm.
Yeah.
But Jerry was right. It wasn't a burn. It didn't look like a burn, and it wasn't a burn. It was, some type of an accident. She certainly didn't get it in the South Tower.
Right, where it was hanging on by a thread.
Yeah, where
from
you
a
painted this
burn.
exceptionally graphic picture.
You put it in your own pocket.
Woof.
You're like an Alanis Morissette song.
Yeah.
All the other ones.
You got one hand in your pocket. Woof. Like I said before, she came from a wealthy family. Her dad was a naval engineer, and he owned a factory in the maritime industry called Anicia. He would end up getting involved in a complex financial scandal that would result in him and one of Tanya's brothers finding themselves in jail.
Uh-oh.
Those who knew the family said that this was a huge blow and that it was all over the media. Their family had been disgraced, and paired with her obsession of America is most likely why when she graduated, she moved to an apartment in the East End and came up with the idea to pretend to be a survivor and a widow of the 9/11 attacks.
Like, is it for
Notoriety.
an inclusion? Like, is it to be in a group? Is it like fame, fortune? Like, to me, I always thought money was the big motivator.
She didn't make a cent off of the work that she did. In fact, the opposite. She funded a lot of things.
Wait, she actually did. Well, she did good work.
Everything she did was good. Aside from lying about the fucking worst thing you can lie about.
Well,
and traumatizing everyone.
Okay, yes. Okay, that's a big one.
I take that back. But no, like
Does
everything.
that take away from her work?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Of course it does.
Right.
You made Linda listen to you give fake details about people dying in front of you.
Yeah.
You made people come retrieve you on the side of a hotel when you were sobbing, and
yes, and made up lies about victims' families.
you were going to give part of your clothes to the man in the red bandana's parents.
And that was a real story, right? That was from the parents.
That's from the parents. Yeah.
Like, that's not her recount. Like, that's like
the man with the wedding ring. He never existed.
Yeah.
It was all to make you look like you were some sort of a saint of some sort that had experienced the worst of the worst. It's like people are sad for you, but they're also praising you.
It's
like
all
it's
the
like
best
this
attention.
I guess so.
Right? People are sad, like, "Oh, you're so brave. Look
You're
at you."
so,
Oh,
like,
and then look at all the good work
why
you're
am
doing.
I sad when your story's so much worse than mine and you're doing so much more than I
Oh my
am?
god, and I bet you she was getting glad-handed, like celebrities or like politicians, like the mayor comes to town, "Oh, hey, let's go meet these. We're
Giuliani.
gonna have them throw out the first pitch at a baseball game, and let's." Oh my
Maybe he
god.
didn't suck until he met her.
And then he caught the
He
suck?
caught the suck.
I could
Contagious
see
suck.
yeah, I could see that.
So around this time, Jerry had gotten a call from the Times reporter.
He's like, "Hell yeah, I'll talk to
He's
you."
like, what is up? So he decided, he's going to take this call. And he would say that it was about halfway through the phone call when he realized that they weren't doing a piece on a survivor. This was an investigation.
Oh, yes.
And on September 27th of 2007, the Times released their article about Tanya Head.
Oh, man, so close.
I will post this article because I read it thoroughly. And this is like before anybody really knew with all certainty. And they did the work.
Right.
They did the work behind this article. And my God. So she was instantly stripped of her titles, obviously, with the Survivors Network. There was a plaque with a quote from her mounted at the Tribute Center removed.
What?
However, I'm sure she's aware that these things were going to get erased, but they never actually got to formally tell her because no one was able to get a hold of her again. All of the letters that they sent to her saying like presidency revoked would just come back, return to sender. Mail refused.
Well, you know what? Yeah.
You gotta go.
You gotta hide. That's the move.
In 2008, her ex-friends in the support group would receive an email claiming that she had ended her own life. But once again, this would turn out to be a lie. They just wanted her to, she wanted them to shut up. That was all it was.
Wait,
they're like, stop talking about me. I'm not alive anymore.
Yeah. Well, how'd you type this email? Listen, I don't want to pull up. I don't want to bust, but I mean, like, I am dead.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and assume that she probably wrote it from someone else.
I write you this as I have died.
Oh, God.
I hope this email finds you bitches well.
I hope it finds you well, as I am not.
If I was really dead, I would haunt you bitches.
So, once again, she's a big stinking liar who lies.
Anyways, that's it for me. Once again, I am dead. All the best. Yeah. Bye.
Best regards, Tanya, Alicia.
Tanya.
I actually don't know.
Tanya,
I can't keep track of my shit.
Oh.
But she would be spotted again on the streets of New York on September 14th of 2011, which is really close to September 11th.
Yeah.
There was a So this is so good. You know what? It didn't get great reviews because it just really lays it all out there. It's not. Some reviewers were saying, well, the title gives it all away. They should have. So the documentary that I watched is called The Woman Who Wasn't There.
Oh, yes. I've heard of that.
I thought it was a lot of information for me, which is great. And the filmmakers got word as to where she might be. And when they tried to approach her, they had cameras rolling and she looked, as soon as she saw the camera, they're crossing the street. She's standing, it looks like waiting for a bus or something. And they cross the street. And as soon as she sees the camera, she has this look on her face and puts her hand up and then she goes to lunge for the camera. And that's all the footage that we have. That's the only time she's ever been spotted since she was found out. But, they were never able to speak to her and no one can be certain where she is right now. However, there is a profile on LinkedIn with her legal name, Alicia Estz, and a picture that looks a lot like her. Her hair is a little bit darker, but I would say I would eat my shoe if it wasn't her.
Let me guess. Phenomenal resume. A lot of experience.
I have a few things. You
do not.
So it also says that she went to school at Estrada Business School in Spain.
Okay, that's true.
And she's fluent in Spain. She also says she's fluent in French and she's learning how to speak Mandarin. So who knows? She could just fucking lie in any place.
I'm learning to speak Spanish. Saboya?
Yeah. Ça va bien, Missy. We're so bilingual over here.
Damn right.
So, if this is her, it claims that she's currently living in Miami, Florida. Under interests, she follows both Mark Cuban and Kevin O'Leary. So, dare I say, a Dragon's Den fan. Or not Dragon's Den, was it? What's it over there? No, Dragon's Den here.
Tank.
Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Under skills,
oh no,
it says that she's skilled in strategic planning, which I suppose is true.
Yep.
She would have had to know all about poor Dave.
Yes.
His real life, what floor he worked on.
Ew,
Like,
that's so gross.
it is gross. That is super gross.
It's like very like predatory.
Like all the way in, like until I did this research, and I've just always, with 9/11, I've always watched I didn't know about all the sky lobbies and stuff like that, right? So she had to know the floor plans of the towers in order to know that she was going to the sky lobby at the 78th floor and da 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 da. Like she did her research on this thing.
Yeah.
And in the woman who wasn't there, they say like her friends or her, they say I wouldn't be surprised if she did her research on us. Like she seemed to know what she was talking about.
Yeah.
But, all for what? Like what was the takeaway here?
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Like it wasn't to do good. That's a
I don't
byproduct. I
know.
think the doing good is a byproduct of the seeking recognition.
So you think it was like, in order to get the full
Yeah.
recognition that she
Because
felt she
think of the attention you get. You're a hero. You have helped save survivors.
Yeah.
Through I guarantee you she saved lives. Or that, let me rephrase that. I guarantee you that network saved lives.
Yeah.
To have people that have suffered the same extremely unique terror and trauma.
Yeah. I cannot wrap my head around it. To me, it feels like, would you not feel disgusting inserting yourself into something of that magnitude?
I guess not. I mean, we would.
And there's so many ways you can get found out. Like there's only 18 survivors that would have been in her position.
Yeah.
Can't we just find those names? I did. I looked on, granted, it's the internet's a lot more
robust
than what it was. So maybe in 2004, when she was saying all these stupid things, you weren't able to just so easily figure out who those 18 survivors were.
And I also think one of the struggles with these guys in the group also was, could this really happen? Like everyone who questioned her questioned themselves. And I think that we're almost blind or ignorant to that type of person.
I don't think it's blind or ignorant. I think it's that you're like, no. Like, right. Well, I guess that is ignorance.
You're
but
like, there's no way.
There's no way. And that's like all
themselves...
these, nowadays you see all these podcasts with Scamanda and all that kind of stuff. All these people that are saying they have these horrific illnesses. You can't question that. And not to mention like with Tanya too, as weird as it sounds, she had the added advantage of having that horrific scar down her arm that kind of lended itself to her story.
But that's the first thing that clicked for her.
She was like literally in the hospital like,
oh,
yes,
September
I'm going to use
11th.
this to ruin some people. But
man,
in the documentary, one of the women who's interviewed, she says that, she's made friends, of course, through the Survivors Network with widows that are actual widows. And they said like when this whole thing came to light, they were like, who would want to be us? This is
I never even thought of that.
Like they're tortured constantly by this. Like who would make up being us?
Yeah.
Before I close out this episode though,
man,
I do really want to quickly honor a couple people from today's episode that were actually there.
Oh God.
And deserve more than to just be part of this crazy person's story. Like I said, when Brendan was doing his late night research, trying to desperately figure out if Tanya's story was true, he did realize that her fiancé was in fact real and that he was loved and admired by many people.
Dave?
So Dave Suarez was only 24 years old at the time of the attacks. He worked on the 99th floor of the North Tower as an assistant consultant with Deliote? It's like a check. Yeah?
No.
I don't know.
Are you amazed how many young people had jobs in big buildings?
Yes.
Like I'm
really amazed.
You're giving these ages and I'm like, and already you're working in the trade center? Like that's amazing.
Ambitious.
Yes.
So he was consulting with Marsh McLennan. At the time, he was applying to schools for his MBA and was hopeful that he was going to get into Harvard. Growing up, he was an Eagle Scout, and according to those who knew him, he was a sharp young man with his whole life ahead of him. Dave would tutor high school students who were about to be taking their SATs and was known to have a terrific sense of humor.
Oh, my God.
Dave had attended West Windsor Plainsboro High School in New Jersey and was loved by all of his teachers. He was even known to go back and visit with them after he had already graduated. Everyone said of Dave that one thing that stood out about him was his smile. He would volunteer his free time helping at the nonprofit charity New York Care, which is like, I tried to look it up so that I could summarize it for you.
Mhm.
It's just everything.
Everything?
Yeah,
If
it's like
you're in need, yeah, they'll help
food
you.
donations, like arranging events, helping kids, like everything. So in his obituary, a friend had recalled something that he had experienced, Dave, right outside of the Twin Towers, when a man in a wheelchair who was seemingly unhoused came up to him and asked for money. Dave would hand the man a $20 bill, only for this guy to get up, fold his wheelchair up, and walk away carrying his wheelchair underneath his arm. Only Dave did not seem disheartened by this person. He simply shrugged it off because the way he thought it was better to be scammed by someone than to not believe someone who is truly struggling.
Stop it right now.
Yeah.
Like that was in his, like that is her. Like she knew it.
Yeah.
She must have. Who would be with somebody who's a scammer who says, that's written about them?
Yeah.
Like that goes through
That's
that
actually
story.
really, really, I'd never even thought about that point of it. Yeah. He still would have been like, you know what?
And then when that unhoused man was going to get into a cab,
He sold it from him. Dave was like, get
give me
out of
that
here.
20. Yoink.
Yeah, here's my card. Bye.
I was like, oh my God, I just performed a miracle.
Yeah, you would too.
Yeah,
You'd be like, guess what I just did?
Praise be me.
He was in a wheelchair. I gave him $20. Man's walking.
That's right.
He was jogging. So on the 20th anniversary of the attacks, Dave's father, Ted, would leave a comment on the Marsh McLennan Memorial website. He wrote, "Today is the 20th anniversary of 9/11, but it feels like yesterday. One wonders what might have been if not for this day. We will never know. What we know is that we were privileged to have known David and to have been inspired by him, to have witnessed his positive attitude, his willingness to volunteer his time for worthwhile community projects, his ability to see possibilities and make them come true. We know that influenced by his memory and legacy of energy, many others have picked up on his behalf. Thus, although we will never know what might have been, we know he was the spark that has motivated much good. We know that although we will forever miss, love, and remember him, his spirit remains alive in us. Ted Suarez, father of David." And David would have been 48 years old today. Yeah. Well, as for the man in the red bandana. Oh, this one's going to hurt me. Tanya claimed that the man in the red bandana saved her life.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mentioned, he was also very real and is someone that is often spoke of when this horrible day is brought up. Since childhood, he had carried around a red bandana with him since the time that his father had given it to him to use in church in case he needed to blow his nose so that he didn't ruin his pocket square.
I just love that. Like,
yeah.
Tradition.
Yeah. Here you go. You can have my coaster.
Oh, thank you. Pre-tiered.
So, yeah, he didn't want him to ruin his pocket square that he had in his suit pocket. He was actually on the 78th floor when the plane hit the South Tower. So he was on the same floor that Tanya said that she got hit on, which is crazy that she actually knew that his location lined up with where she would have been when he put out the fire on her back and her arm.
Well, and I think that all of this, I know no social media, but like I said, those first couple of weeks after 9/11, it was everything September 11th. So I am sure there were stories.
I think that his story specifically would have started to come out after the dust had settled. You know what I mean? Like we're not talking about casualties anymore. We're not talking about terrorists anymore.
Yes.
We're talking,
yes.
You'd have to get this out of the survivors first and foremost.
Right.
But he was there. He was there when the plane hit the South Tower, and he brought many out to safety. He was known to have gone back into the building at least 3 times before the South Tower collapsed while he was inside. Wells was a volunteer firefighter, and he demonstrated every bit of the courage that it would take as one. When all of those people needed help, he went from being an equities trader to a hero of a firefighter. He also was only 24 years old and had called his mom to let her know on her voicemail that he was okay after the first plane hit the North Tower. Jesus. Sadly, no one could have fathomed what was going to happen next. At the dedication of the 9/11 Memorial Museum in 2014, Wells Crowther would be at the center of the speech given by President Barack Obama. He would say, he led those survivors down the stairs to safety and carried a woman on his shoulders down 17 flights. Then he went back up all those flights and back down again, bringing more wounded to safety until that moment when the tower fell. Wells was only 75, sorry, that was the end of the quote. Wells was only 75 feet away from being free of the tower and walking away with his life, but instead he went back time and time again to help bring others to their family members. Everyone that he helped that day said that he spoke to them in a very calming voice while leading them to safety. Wells also would have been 48 years old today.
Wow.
And that's the case of Tania Head or Alicia Estz. I just the lies. Why are we lying about the dog?
It's all part of it, I guess.
It doesn't need to be.
But I think that you just, maybe you're adding like a little accent piece to your life, and you say, oh, we had a dog. And then all of a sudden now you need a dog.
And then you're forcing these poor victims to listen to your story. Like, I mean.
Yeah, you're re-triggering.
Even if you need that kind of weird attention, like, people will listen to 9/11 survivors. Could you not maybe regurgitate your to somebody who hadn't been so fucking horribly traumatized? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's almost intentional at that point.
I think
it's
she wanted
sick.
to like immerse herself in like be that group.
Like, and to make yourself worse than them when you're not even real.
But here's my question. If you were a woman from Spain and saw what happened and you idolized America and came to live in the west side of New York City a year after the attacks, the east side, a year after the attack, couldn't you be an advocate for survivors that way? And would there be any issue? It might be harder, right? I
have that exact same thing written in here. Like, if you are willing to fund things, you're willing to like get the ball rolling on them being able to go into ground zero. You have the sense to be able to do these things. Just say, all I want to do is help.
Yes.
I'm sure there's volunteers that aren't survivors.
You can be, that's what advocates are. They're on the outside.
That's what I can't. It's like she needed the pity on top of the recognition.
Yeah, I think it's that attention seeking. I think it's attention more than anything. And
then telling the parents of Wells Crowther that you'll give them your burned clothes, that their son, it was the last thing that he touched.
Yeah.
Because as he handed her to the firefighter, he ran back inside when the building collapsed. Is so demented.
It's almost like Forrest Gump, like how he was a part of all of these things, like all these connective real events.
Yeah.
And then she kind of wove her story in between all these real life markers.
But whilst taking credit for a bunch of
yes, and hoping that those real life markers, you would have to know that it would get back to you, especially when your fiance is a real guy.
Your fiance is a real guy. That's exactly right. Like, for someone who's, and that's what she was considered, a genius. Like, she's super smart. She went to, but her friends in Barcelona said that she also was very competitive, and when it came to stuff, she would only surround herself with people who weren't as bright as her.
Oh, same.
Hey. But
can't falter for that one.
But yeah, so she said her friends were like, she would only end. They said that, she'd been spoiled all of her life. She got everything that she ever wanted handed to her. She was smarter than most, but she was also overweight, and she was also, she would hear people talking badly about her and saying things about her, and that would cause her to spiral. And so they thought that, like, her way of proving to them that she was,
right,
was making up all these fake boyfriends, these fake rich boyfriends and stuff like that. Like, there was something to her low self-esteem when it came to herself,
right,
aesthetically.
You've been making fun of me for being fat. Well, I still pull. I got these big hot guys.
I still pull. Yeah.
You don't think it's exact, maybe not an exact quote.
Well, you don't know Spanish. That's why it didn't translate properly.
True. Mi amo e pull.
Polioli.
That's my name is Pull.
But yeah, I just, there's so much to this. I felt like it's a lot of re-victimization. It was also so easy to, you were in school. You're documented in Spain.
Yes.
When that happened. Like,
yes. They said your name and you said, see?
But
Put your hands
again,
up.
I think that was when she started with her panic attacks and everything spiraling, was when she started getting that, certain level of fame.
Mhm.
And she was like, oh, this is going to come back on me
Yes.
pretty soon. And that's why she was, but then she's victimizing her survivor friends all over again. Like,
Yeah.
crying constantly. First of all, calling people all day. What a goddamn nightmare that must have been.
Know.
That's one of the girls in the episode was like, yeah, like she was beginning to like really get on everybody's nerves.
Oh no.
But I don't know. At the end of the day, I guess we'll never understand. I mean, then she faked her own suicide almost
Via email.
The very next year. So it's like she obviously hasn't changed. She'll use any form of being, piece of to make people think what she wants them to think.
I remember thinking about the kids of the firefighters that day, and just
Pete Davidson. Were you thinking about Pete specifically?
Well, I was just like, I wonder what the world holds for them. And then
SNL.
And then Pete Davidson comes along, and he's like Ariana Grande, and I'm like, okay, good. This is what I
Kate
hoped.
Beckinsale.
Yes,
he's like, literally pulling the hottest chicks ever.
Yes, I'm pulling. Listen to you.
Oh no. What happened in that short recording? Yeah, no. So, good for him. I actually really like Pete Davidson. He's super funny. But yeah, that's that case. And
just glomming onto that chair. It's so gross.
Yeah, it is. It's really gross. It is. There's no other word for it. It's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's in New York, like, a few years later, just right around that anniversary time.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you're going to catch Alicia Estz or Tanya Head or whatever the hell she wants her stupid name to be in the moment, just maybe hang around the Freedom Tower around the anniversary. Her dumbass is going to show up sooner or later.
Where was she? Was that where she was when that documentary caught up with her?
Yeah. She was
like in the
downtown New York. Yeah. It wasn't like.
Right.
She's just in one of the lights.
Standing in that fountain.
I want to go so bad and see everything. I will be a mess though. I don't know if it's something that I can bring my kids to because no. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. Like, how do you explain why or how or like,
I mean, I think people have been trying to explain it for, I guess it'll be 25 years.
And I had the exact numbers in here originally, but do you know that like as far as remains go, only about 52, I believe, % of the remains have been identified. Like,
yeah, I could see that. I mean,
because they came down with such force.
Everything was just like that. The dust is
and that's
building.
Right. You don't even know after the fact.
The dust is building. Like it's like it was pulverized. Like it's. One of the amazing things to me was to see the paper almost
floating.
Yeah, and this kind of beautiful, graceful way in the midst of all of that.
Yeah.
And it was just an odd juxtaposition.
Yeah. 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 That's fair point. Yeah, it does look, when you're looking at it and you're just looking at this scene of just sheer terror and just kind of like.
Yeah.
Floating.
Just like. Dun, dun, dun.
And you're like, paper, do you realize what's happening?
Yeah, that's right. Paper. It is 9/11.
Yeah. Oh, God. Okay. Well, that's that episode. I thought it was going to be a lot lighter because of the fact that it was just this.
No, first induction, piece of shit, Hall of Fame.
But I had to go into some of the.
Do you face charges for that? Is that not fraud?
There's nothing illegal about it.
Could you bring her up? Oh, she didn't fundraise. She gave her own. Oh.
There was nothing illegal about what she did. She's just a liar who lies.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So she's not going to get any charges.
Well, there you go, kids. No consequences for lying.
Don't say that.
Oh, sorry.
We're on the other team.
It was just for the kids.
Tanya Head?
It was just for the kids.
All right. Thanks for listening or watching sorry about the interruption halfway through. We're going to get better at this,
I'm not sorry. I stand by it. So
anyways, bye.